keeping you up to date when news breaks. KTN News, get the whole story.
This is KTN News. All right, it's 6 minutes after 7, time for Political Point right here on Morning Express. And in case you're joining us now, I'll quickly reintroduce the guests that we have this morning, the panelists for Political Point. And I have the Speaker of the Nyeri County Assembly, that's Mr. John Kagushia, Honorable John Kagushia. We also have Barack Muluka, who is the Secretary General for ANC Party. Now, the question that we had asked you before, and that's what we'd like to discuss, is what do you think is the cause of bad blood between MCAs and County Assembly speakers? This, of course, has been brought about by several County Assembly speakers who have either been impeached or have tried to be impeached. We have the likes of Nairobi, Kisumu, Kakamega, Homa Bay, Nyandarua. So there just seems to be something that doesn't seem to augur well. And let's use an example. For instance, many of us are familiar with Nairobi County. And I'd like us to just look at some of the accusations or allegations against Beatrice Elachi as she was facing that impeachment. And these are some of them, if we can look at them now. And we have conflict of interest, undermining authority of County Assembly Service Board, abuse of office, and of course we will be reminded of some of the County Assembly members saying that there are several things that she did not do above board according to them, gross misconduct as well as failure to show leadership, influencing tender for the purchase of her residence from an initial 100 million to 125 million Kenyan shillings. We have inviting investigating officers to come and investigate the County Service Board for irregular procurement while that was a board mandate. So this, again, would be overstepping her mandate according to the MCAs. Used public funds to visit Dubai to receive an honorary doctorate degree, that again being using public funds for self, which of course would be viewed as gross misconduct. Bought a first-class ticket at 1.5 million Kenyan shillings to travel to the US on May 23rd, while the standard ticket for county officers is business class. Remember, in her own defense, she said that she had a medical condition which possibly made her use first class as opposed to business class. Again, that I will leave for you to judge whether it is right or not. Overstepping the mandate on Powers and Privileges Committee. So quite a number of accusations right there against Madam Beatrice Elachi. Now, here are some of the reasons, as per the Constitution, why County Speaker, this is Maurice Buloma, also another county speaker who was under siege, and he was alleged of misuse of funds, misappropriating 5.7 million during the renovation of County Assembly Hotel, failing to approve a mortgage and mortgages allegedly using county funds for personal gain. Those are amongst some of the accusations before him. And let us now look at what the Constitution envisaged when it put MCAs in a position to impeach the County Assembly Speaker. And a Speaker of the County Assembly may be removed from the office by County Assembly through a resolution supported by not less than 75% of all members of the County Assembly. So that threshold is quite high, 75%. Number two, a notice of intention to move a motion for a resolution to remove the Speaker shall be given in writing to the clerk and the County Assembly. Remember, some of the County Assembly speakers have claimed that they have been ambushed when the MCAs came, and that was not part of the order given, but they found themselves right in the thick of things. So that is a requirement as per the Constitution. Number 3, let us look at what the Constitution envisages. And number 3, a motion for a resolution to remove a speaker shall be presided over by a member of the County Assembly elected under Section 9(4), where at any time in the absence of the Speaker of the County Assembly, so of course a speaker cannot sit for their own, but an elected member can do that. And that is what the Constitution foresees in terms of having a member of the County Assembly impeached. I'd like us to also look at some of your comments that are coming through. And as you read that, the question that we had asked earlier on was in regards to what you think the bad blood is between MCAs and the member of County Assembly Speaker. And the hashtag is KTN Morning Express. And also, if you'd like to tweet, it's at KTN News, or you can tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Kitonga. And number 4 reason for, the MCAs to impeach is before debate and voting on a motion under Section 3, the Speaker shall be accorded the opportunity to respond to allegations on the floor of the County Assembly. Let me read some of your comments that are coming through. And we have Jimmy Gakio, who says, impunity and retrogressiveness and lack of leadership skills, to name but a few. They don't understand their job description well. We do have County Assembly Speaker present, so I'm sure he's hearing what you have to say. And we have that question mark who says it's because Assembly Speakers are seen to be more as appointees and numb to local issues, but interests of appointing authorities. MCAs want to live beyond their means with taxpayers' money. So somebody coming in defense of the County Assembly Speakers there. It's all about money, nothing more. We have Samuel or Rutwa who says they lack knowledge of how to operate. MCAs want to operate without being tamed to go on spending spree as they wish not to be cautioned by the Speaker. So let me start with you, Honorable John Kagushia. A barrage of accusations there against county assemblies. First of all, let me just hear from you what your thoughts are on that question. Is there bad blood between MCAs and county assembly speakers?
A good question. And of course, I will try to help our viewers really first to understand the issues that have to do with the assemblies. And one of the things I would say is that by the time we are having one speaker who is being ousted, I would like to tell you that we have about 3 majority leaders or majority whips or deputy speakers who have been ousted in different assemblies, probably only because this does not attract as much attention as when the speaker is actually the one who is in the hot soup. And that tells you that generally our assemblies are a bit volatile, in the sense that we seem to have a bit of push and pull between the members of the county assembly. And even by the time it is actually getting to the speaker, you find that quite a number of assemblies have had strained relations, even in between themselves.
So you agree that there are strained relations between MCAs and the Speaker of the County Assembly?
No, actually what I'm saying is, it is true, we do have that as, part of the strenuous relationship that exists in the assemblies, but not only between the members of the county assembly and the speakers. We also have the same between the members of county assembly themselves, and sometimes you also find different factions in the assemblies, and of course also between some members and the leadership in the assemblies. So those are some of the challenges that we do have in the county assemblies.
Okay. But now specifically for the speaker, what do you think is the cause of this push and pull? Is it because of a lack of understanding of roles and what the county assembly speaker is supposed to do?
I think one of the genesis of the speaker's MCA's relationship issues begins at the induction level. At the point when members of county assembly have elected a speaker, whom, by the way, they freely elect, and of course, as such, they have really given that gentleman or the lady a big favor by bringing them to the office. Immediately, you go through the process of induction. The members of county assembly starts realizing how much then the Speaker is powerful, and especially is in control of their own existence in the county assembly. And so at that point is when members of the county assembly now start wondering, we are the people who got the mandate from the ground and from the wananchi. Then we have brought another person here who actually never went to look for votes from the ground. And then he or she comes and they become so powerful that they can control certain aspects of our lives here, our existence here, and much more the resources.
But if that be the case, I mean, it is the power that they wield, unless there's a misunderstanding and accusations like we've seen against Beatrice Elachi, it is within the Constitution. So really, the members of the County Assembly should not have a problem with the power that the Speaker has, because his mandate is within the Constitution.
That would be expected. But you know, they have sometimes what we would call actually valid concerns, that we are the people who have been elected on the ground. But now a Speaker has come, and through the Constitution, through the County Government Act, through the County Services Act, the County Assembly Services Act of 2017, and also through the standing orders, everything that you have to do in the Assembly kind of becomes determined by the Speaker of the County Assembly, who, of course, is a person you have just brought on board. And then the questions now start lingering in MCA's minds. How do we then ensure that we check these powers? And one of the first things that most of the members of County Assembly will do is to ensure that they kind of reduce that influence and that power of the... Yeah. And of course, that is done, you know, through sometimes going through certain caucusing and through certain aspects of leadership in the Assembly, because of course the Assembly has different levels of leadership. So that will be checked in one way or another. And actually that is usually the genesis of the realization as to how, you know, this position kind of has so much control over the members of County Assembly. And at that point is now where the Speaker is now supposed to understand some of these concerns that are coming from the members without having to dismiss. You know, here, when we discuss it here, it is outrightly, it is in the law. So members of the County Assembly should just take it as it is. But that is usually not the case. On the ground is different.
Yeah. All right, let me bring in Barack Muluka on what you've had to say, your thoughts on that. I specifically pick on a word that you've used, that when the members of the County Assembly bring in the Speaker, they've done them a favor, as opposed to what I would imagine is merited position. Could that be a problem that we're dealing with, Barack?
Thank you. I'm not a Speaker, and I don't intend to be one. But I can say with a lot of confidence that you are not doing anybody a favor by making them a Speaker. I understand the human factors behind my neighbor here, the Speaker, being very cautious because he could actually leave this show and go to Nyeri and
find himself in hot soup.
Find himself in hot soup. And therefore he has to be very cautious and very diplomatic. And I will not be very diplomatic this morning, Mike, because we must ask ourselves why it is that these things are happening. And I speak in the wake of the Auditor General's report on 15 county assemblies, which has been done as a sample exercise. And we have seen that there's a lot of abuse of power in the county assemblies. We have not understood why the county assemblies are there. The county assemblies are there because opportunities have been brought closer to the people. And these assemblies are supposed to be participating first and foremost in legislation for the counties. That if you look at a county such as Kakamega, where my home in Emanyudia is, you can see that there are little former market centers that are beginning to develop into quasi-urban centers. And that I would expect that instead of the Kakamega County Assembly focusing too much on Speaker Bluma, they should be asking about the transformation of those rural centers into urban communities and legislating on sewage, legislating on water, legislating on security, legislating on general sanitation,
matters that affect
the general public. But what you are seeing, and this is lent credence by the Auditor General's report, is abuse of office. That these people are looking for every opportunity to put a shilling in the pocket. And
when you say these people, do you mean the speaker or the
members
MCAs?
of the county assembly, the representatives, the people we have elected and those we have nominated? And when they get there, they are focused on self-enrichment. I'm not the one saying this. It's in the report, and it's even in today's press, that if you go to a certain county, you will find that they have had over only 18 reports have been filed, and only 8 statements have been made. Okay. And people have taken sitting allowances. Now, when speakers interrogate those kinds of things, they are told, oh, you are a bad speaker.
You're a bad speaker.
People...
I want to hear from Kagusha because, like Barack Muluka has mentioned, maybe you're being very diplomatic. Are you in agreement with some of the accusations that the MCAs are putting before the speakers? And I ask this specifically because if we look at Nairobi, for example, when I looked at especially what they had to say, majority of the accusations they had against the Speaker of the Nairobi Assembly were very personal. You know, she didn't approve our trip to this place. Is it self-gain? Are they really doing this for the sake of Mwananchi, or is it just a war between now the Speaker and the MCAs because they want their own?
Actually, there's no Speaker whether a speaker is elected from the MCAs amongst themselves, and the speaker is still retained and have the same powers as the current setup. There's no speaker who will be a friend to all the MCAs at any given moment. There will still be issues. Because we are looking at of course, there are issues of the resources at the center of what is happening. And of course, when you look at the accusations that have been made against the speakers, you'll find that that is at the center stage. And
when we talk about resources here, we're not talking about resources that they want devolved and used for the
that are coming to the individual.
It's what they want to come to themselves.
One of the serious perceptions that most of the members of the county assembly actually do have is because the speakers, the speakers have 3 roles, so to say, in the assembly. They have what we would call the legislative role, which really is the chairing of the assembly, the plenaries. They also have administrative role, because then they are the chairs of the service board, the county assembly service board. So although the speakers are not the operators, but they are the chairs, just like the chair of, these parastatals. Yeah, so, but the county assembly clerk is now the CEO who implements. Now, because of being the chairs of the board, of course, then they are seen as, okay, of course, that is the administrative role. Then you have another role of a speaker, which is definitely the political role, to ensure that as an assembly, because really you are in charge of, like in my assembly, I have 44 members of county assembly, so I'm in charge of 44 politicians. And that basically then means that a lot of politics and a lot of ensuring that things are moving in a certain direction has really to be done. So a speaker will definitely have those major roles. So now this administrative role is one of the most queried issue, because the members of county assembly will perceive like either the speaker is over benefiting from their resources as a chair of the board. Of course, some of the allegations that would come, like maybe a speaker has used business class, first class, and such kind of things, and those kind of things, and of course, then that brings a pull and push between them and the MCAs. Then the other issue then comes on board.
Because of time, I just want us to manage time. But does this boil down to the fact that they're defending Mwananchi, or is this a personal fight between MCAs and speakers?
Definitely. When the fight between a speaker and the members of county assembly arises, is usually mainly about the members of the county assembly. When, of course, now you see fights coming between the assembly, members of the county assembly, and the governor, sometimes now it will have taken the direction of the Mwananchi. Now, what happened before? Not always actually. Yes. In the first assembly, the governors were actually seen to be having a free hand in terms of control of resources for the members of the county assembly, because in terms of how the budget was being structured, the governors actually had a bit of say in terms of how much actually went to the county assembly, until a little bit of streamlining was done. Now, after the streamlining was done, governors kind of their influence over the members of county assembly in terms of their budget was completely reduced and handed over now to the county service board. And for that reason, every fight that may have been directed to the county governor on the issue of resources was actually now redirected to the speaker. And the speaker, of course, then is usually more vulnerable than a governor, because the governor is not elected by the members of county assembly, but the speaker is. A governor, as we are talking now, has proved to be unimpeachable. It's difficult to impeach a governor. Okay. Now, speakers, we have examples where speakers have actually been impeached. So it then becomes a little bit of a softer target to target the speaker. But mainly the speakers are targeted because of the role in chairing the County Assembly Services Board, because of the issue, of course, of the distribution of resources. Yeah, so it becomes a very delicate position.
Okay, let me bring in Barack Muluka and your thoughts on the way forward, because this seems to be more of a selfish fight. When you talk about MCAs fighting the speaker, one word that keeps coming up is resources. And of course, you and I would have to guess where those resources are going. But way forward, what's the best way forward? The reason why or rather, I would imagine the envisaged of the Constitution was the fact that MCAs would be there to check, to ensure that the speaker, or at least things run according to what Mwananchi wants. Your thoughts on the way forward?
I think just within the assembly environment itself, the first thing would be due process. If you look at the manner in which these speakers have been hounded out of office, you must agree that it is informed with elements of hooliganism. It may be honorable hooliganism because it is being carried out by honorable people, but it is hooliganism nonetheless. That due process is thrown to the winds. That the due process speaks of the opportunity to give the speaker the chance to be heard, to defend himself or to defend herself before the motion is then framed. And by the time you are doing that impeachment, because it's also possible, it's also true that some of the speakers may be compromised, they may be guilty of the accusations that have been leveled against them. However, for me, whenever you take the path of mob justice, then you have lost it. You find fellows sneaking into the Nairobi County Assembly, for example, under a motion that is saying they are going to discuss economic affairs. The due process is very clear that you must have a motion of impeachment, and you must state very clearly that we are going to discuss the conduct, character, and behavior and activities of the speaker with a view to removing them. And you must, when you have now put one of you in charge, and the question of deputy speaker, of course, the fellows who usually take over is before the courts, because both the Constitution and the statutory laws do not recognize that position of deputy speaker. However, whoever is presiding over the activities must be able to read the motion, and people can now discuss it, debate it, and decently remove the speaker. But you cannot have people coming with woodwork, hammers, tongs, and paraphernalia, and they are shouting and screaming and locking the doors and nailing stuff. I think that is hooliganism. If we just follow due process, we will be able to separate the chaff from the corn, and we will know that the speaker here is actually being correctly and rightfully impeached.
All right, Mr. Kagusha, because of time, your concluding remarks and possible way forward, because then what this does, it stalls development and ultimately injures Wanjiku.
As a matter of fact, it is unfortunate when the members of county assembly concentrate too much on tearing each other apart, including the head of the assembly, who is the speaker. Because the moment most of the energy is used in that conflict, then you have very little energy and focus left to focus on the issue of pushing the agenda of the county ahead, especially when it comes to the issue of pushing the committee system ahead, because the committee system is an extremely strong system in the assembly that can help deliver services to Wanjiko, especially through working and oversighting the departments that are concerned. In my opinion, we have a law that was enacted in 2017, especially which kind of was coming to cure the problem of the administration of the assembly by establishing a much more stronger assembly service board, where even members of the public were introduced in it. Now we have 2 members from the public. And of course, we have 2 MCAs, one from the majority party and one from the minority party. And then, of course, headed by the speaker, and then you have the clerk as the secretary. This was meant to kind of now separate the service, running of the service as an assembly from the members of the county assembly. But now members of county assembly are not kind of taking this kindly. Most of them still want to have their hand still in running of the operations of the county assembly. And of course, the kind of, like now a speaker trying to separate that two and saying, no, you have the service, which is the members of staff, and then we have the members of the county assembly who kind of have to be separated, and none of the staff now can answer like it used to be before. The assemblies before, I mean, in the council, you would sometimes even assemble, or you'd summon a member of staff actually at the floor and ask them questions. And of course, you know what that led into. Conflict of interest, and of course, sometimes the members of the staff serving the interest, the political interest, sometimes out of intimidation and fear. And of course, they end up getting into trouble. So the way forward, in my opinion, is that we need to ensure first, if a speaker has to be impeached, let the process be elaborate, let the reasons be sufficient, and due process followed. And if that is actually done, more often than not, you will almost have no speaker actually successfully being impeached. Motions might be mooted, intentions might be shown, but in terms of the actual impeachment, like it happened in Nakuru, you will find that it becomes very, very difficult to actually impeach a speaker. Number 2, we need to introduce a 2-tier system, just like the governors, where the speakers are actually impeached, so that once a speaker has actually been impeached at the assembly, then there is need for the speaker to go through another level. Let us have a tribunal, or even the Senate, constituting a committee which then investigates the issues that have been leveled against the speaker. Why? Because sometimes someone may just wake up and say that this speaker has misappropriated funds, and then the speaker is impeached and sent home packing. Now, if that was not true, then you have kind of, messed up the reputation of that kind of a person, especially even in future endeavors, especially.
And truth be told, if that continues, then we'd really never have a speaker, because the minute you disagree with MCAs, then you would be out. We need to conclude. Barak Muluka, your thoughts on the way forward?
Yes, I think apart from due process, which I've already talked about, there's a need for somebody else, some other authority to arbitrate, to also oversee this kind of process, like a speaker here says. And I think that a committee of the Senate would do well, because one of the responsibilities, in fact, the main responsibility of the Senate is to oversee the welfare and interests of the county, and the counties are not going to be moving and functioning if they are steeped in this incessant wars for territory between the speakers and the MCAs. So that, I think, again, the Senate may want to look into that, and the National Assembly to look at the act again and see how the removal of the speaker